Steady Pulse released to DbD with, to put it kindly, a couple bugs that may or may not have made at least half the killer roster unplayable. During this period, I went on a 2-week streak of no serious Dead by Daylight gaming outside of getting the All Things Wicked B-roll and customs with my friends, and instead of Dead by Daylight, I had time to play other games for a significant period of time. Some of these include finally getting the Supreme Helper minion achievement in Terraria, skill issuing in Repo. Okay, I'm gonna need you on standby for these two items. Oh shit! Finally downloading Balatro, and the most significant thing here, getting back into playing Ultrakill, an action shooter game where you play as a vampiric GoPro robot rampaging through hell in a desperate act of refueling on blood for survival. It's an extremely fast-paced game, but it's very fun and I highly recommend giving it a try if you get a chance. While I was playing, I got the fun idea of trying to make a killer concept for this game if it were to get into Dead by Daylight. 2v8's currently running again, but if I'm gonna be real, I don't really feel like covering it right now, and I think this idea is way more fun to think and talk about. Now, I'm well aware this is not a horror game, outside of one secret level, but we've been getting some non-horror IPs as of lately, so while the likelihood of Ultrakill joining Dead by Daylight is next to never going to happen, it isn't zero. So, screw it, let's have some fun, we enjoy that around here. Let's create an Ultrakill killer in Dead by Daylight. Before we begin, let's first establish what exactly Ultrakill is for those unfamiliar. As stated in the intro, Ultrakill is a fast-paced action shooter where you play as V1, a humanoid war machine with the ability to absorb blood into its chassis to self-repair any damage it takes. It's very similar to Doom in premise. In the Ultrakill universe, humanity has gone extinct. Machines are the primary species on Earth. Blood is their fuel source, and there's none left. However, hell is full of things to kill, and I don't think I need to say anything more. The game likes to throw a lot of shit at you, and it also enjoys giving you a lot of weapons to use to kill said shit. High mobility and style is massively promoted and rewarded in this game. One of the ranks at the end of each level is literally how cool do you look while fighting everything, and getting this number up involves constantly switching weapons to keep your score multiplier high and comboing weapon mechanics with each other. V1 can slide for extra mobility, have 3 dashes at a time, utilize revolvers, shotguns, nail guns, railguns, rocket launchers, different variations of all of these weapons, a grappling hook, and the ability to reflect projectiles and most attacks with its own punches. With all of this stated, the GoPro has killed a large variety of Hellspawn, Angels, Gabriel himself, and Prime Souls. Souls that are lethal enough that Heaven needed to imprison them out of fear of them posing a threat to it. As a result of everything here, V1 is, in my opinion at least, the best possible candidate to become a killer in the entity's service in the realm. It would be super easy to convince it too. The entity would literally just promise it an endless supply of blood to fuel off of. However, with all this power and the ability to basically make Nurse look like a D tier by comparison if left unchanged upon entering the realm, V1 would most likely need to be given the Mark of Negation upon entry. The Mark of Negation, for those that forgot, is that red mark on the back of Vecna's neck in-game, and its in lore purpose is for the entity to essentially giga-nerf the abilities of absurdly powerful killers so they're more in line with everyone else power-wise, making them fair for the trials. It's the reason Vecna doesn't just rule over the realm with an iron fist and have the entity at his command and is in its service instead, albeit unwillingly. Now that everything's pretty much established, let's get on with my idea for V1 being playable in Dead by Daylight. Coming up with an idea that retains faithfulness to Ultrakill was very difficult. DbD is not at all built to handle the chaotic nature of Ultrakill, so my final kit idea had to sacrifice some things in order to not make V1 unplayably bad for survivors. By the way, this was the only thing I really cared about in regards to balancing. My main goal of this thought experiment was to make something from Ultrakill work within the confines of Dead by Daylight. But I did have the foresight to recognize creating what would basically be Blight or Koniki with a gun is a terrible idea. The whole goal was to make a draft of something that could reasonably work within Dead by Daylight's limits. So when I inevitably see a comment complaining about the balance of this entire concept, I have already disclosed this ahead of time, this is no longer my problem. If you'd like to fine-tune my idea or create your own in the comments, feel free. With all that out of the way, let's begin talking about the concept. Starting with the killer itself, our killer choice for this hypothetical chapter is V1, their killer designation being the Machine, referencing Gabriel's nickname for it in its home game. It moves at 4.6 speed, and it has a 40-meter tear radius, having an average height size, around Wesker's height. For its basic attack, the Machine will utilize its right arm, the feedbacker, to punch survivors, while breaking pallets and walls will let it temporarily switch to the Knuckle Duster arm for the animation. The Machine's power is called War Machine's Bloodlust, a revolver that can switch between 3 different modes using the control key similar to Knight and his guards, while M2 fires a shot depending on the revolver's current mode. The first mode, Piercer mode, will allow the Machine to press and hold M2 to prepare a charge shot. It can be fired after 1 second, but waiting for 3 seconds will let it reach its full charge, allowing it to fly as fast as 30 meters per second and go as far as 25 meters before the shot vanishes. Any survivor hit by it will lose a health state, but it can be avoided by using the environment to avoid the shot. The second mode, Marksman mode, will cause the Machine to throw a coin in the air in an arc in front of it. The coin itself won't do anything, but shooting it with any of the other modes will cause the coin to fly in a survivor's direction if they're within 12 meters of the coin getting shot, injuring on hit. Alternatively, hitting the coin with an M1 will send it flying in whatever direction it was punched in, injuring on contact with the survivor. However, thanks to the coins having tracking, coin shots will not be able to down survivors. Hitting an injured survivor will simply put them in deep wound. Finally, the last mode, Sharpshooter mode, will begin charging up a shot that can ricochet off surfaces 3 times before it disappears. Shooting this shot at survivors directly won't cause an injury, but it will begin to damage after it bounces off at least 1 surface beforehand, making this ideal in areas with a lot of clutter. All modes will have 12 seconds of cooldown each, and to encourage using your entire kit, successfully hitting a survivor with one of the modes will cause that mode to go from fresh to stale, giving a progressively higher cooldown up to 20 seconds max. To freshen up the mode and remove its cooldown penalty, simply get an injury with one of the other modes or your M1. To break this power down, my idea for V1 was to make it a ranged killer with a high emphasis for style and trick shots, especially with the sharpshooter mode and the freshness mechanic. V1 lacks mobility thanks to the earlier stated blatant Kaneki with a gun thing, and it's the reason I made it 4.6 to compensate. But it has multiple ways to injure survivors not using the environment to avoid getting shot by the various revolver modes. In Ultrakill, the Piercer uses a charge shot as its special, making this one of the most straightforward guns to port over. The Marksman in Ultrakill allows you to use 4 coins and use the Marksman's bullets itself or other weapons to shoot them and redirect for free hits, contributing greatly to style points. I feel like this would be a bit much if ported over as is, so the gun in DbD would only have 1 coin since you can't shoot by default with the Marksman here. You have to use your own M1 or the other guns to accomplish this. In order to avoid cheesing free downs with the Marksman, it was made to be impossible to down with, so this is exclusively just an injure and deep wound thing. You have to actually play the game to secure the down. The Sharpshooter was also easy to port over as well since it does the same thing, but the DbD version requires you to bounce it off something first before it can do damage in order to avoid making this outclass Piercer mode. Finally, Ultrakill has a score multiplier that contributes to your style score in-game, and the multiplier goes down the more you use one specific gun. This is the freshness mechanic, and Ultrakill encourages you to constantly switch your guns so you can keep this multiplier topped off at all times. Since this is a huge part of the Ultrakill experience, I decided to incorporate this into Dead by Daylight as well, only the penalty is longer cooldown times if you insist on constantly using the same weapon rather than minimizing the cooldowns by using different weapons. The main weaknesses of this design is that all 3 of the weapons can be countered by using the environment to stop the shots, bar maybe the sharpshooter ricochets if there's enough stuff around. Loops with tall walls are also rough, and greeting pallets is also good since V1 needs time to charge up the weapons before it can use them. Overall, I think something like this would be a pretty cool take on a ranged killer, trying to focus more on fancy shots and creative use of your revolver settings for those that like to go for spicy hits over the straightforward ones. The last thing I want to go over real quick before I call wraps on the video is the perks I came up with for V1. V1's perks focus more on utilizing survivor blood pools and bloodlust to its advantage since, it's a blood-powered killing machine. The first perk is Blood Fueled Instinct. The idea of this is to turn injured survivors' blood pools against them by causing a survivor's aura to be revealed for 3 seconds if the killer steps in that survivor's blood pool, going on a 20-second cooldown afterwards. This would be useful in high wall loops or in case you lost track of where a survivor's at, plus the 20-second cooldown prevents it from being spammed. Also, if this perk activates twice in one chase, that's probably your cue to leave that survivor since ideally your chases should be around 30 to 40 seconds long. The second perk is called Hemophilia, and what it does is it causes survivors who are fully healed within your tear radius to continue producing blood pools for 60 seconds, and if that survivor gets injured during that time, they'll receive Deep Wound as well. This would be nice for some extra tracking on survivors who recently heal while also synergizing with Blood Fueled Instinct, and the extra Deep Wound is more of a bonus, but still helpful for stopping stuff like Dead Hard or Off the Record or whatnot. Finally, Visceral Pursuit gives the killer a token each time they hit a healthy survivor up to a max of 4. When the killer activates Bloodlust, 2 tokens are consumed and they will instantly gain the tier 3 Bloodlust stats until it's deactivated by any means. For killers who use their power a lot, this wouldn't be that good, but lower tiers who oftentimes need to use it sometimes for their hits, this would be super nice for them. Plus it only works on healthy survivors, so you can't just farm injured people for the stacks. Some of these could maybe use some fine-tuning, but hey, that's what drafts are for, right? The whole goal of these concepts are to think of something that could work thematically, and balancing it all would be its own discussion later down the line. Ultrakill's been a game I've been growing more fond of playing in my spare time, so much so that I decided that I wanted to make a theoretical killer concept for everyone's favorite vampiric Nikon camera. I really enjoy doing this kind of theory crafting, so let me know if you'd like me to come up with ideas for other characters or media you'd like, even if there's something really stupid or not horror related. As long as we have a good time with the process, I don't really care what I make a concept for, in all honesty. If you're new here and enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and join our community Discord in the description. Let me know in the comments what kind of character concepts you'd like to see or what kind of designs you've made yourself. It doesn't have to be strictly Ultrakill, it can be any sort of media you enjoy. With all that in mind, cheers!